Welcome to another installment in the Miata Restomod series. I am going to be dividing the next couple parts into two little sub-parts because there are so many details with this. So part one is going to be stripping out the interior, and we're going to be installing the sound barrier and the heat barrier material, giving the interior a good cleaning as well as we go, and you're going to see exactly what products I'm using. I'm using several different things, and we'll see how that all goes together. In the second part, we're actually going to be doing the carpet install. So that's taking a somewhat customized carpet for this particular car, making sure that it fits, and then getting it in the car and cutting the holes that need to be cut. That's the problem with some of these carpets, is that they don't come pre-cut, so you have to measure very carefully. So part of it is being able to put the carpet in and out easily. So to help with that, I'm going to pull out a few things. There's about 3 bolts that connect the e-brake to the car, plus the actual e-brake cable, which comes out with just a simple kind of bolt connection right there. And so what you can do is slide this little clip, which is just held in place by this bolt assembly itself, off. This is not bolted to anything itself. The clip itself just slides right out and makes it easier to turn this. Once you've done that, you can just turn this to unscrew and then remove the remaining bolts. And then we can also get our shifter out as well. Here's a better view of the backside of the e-brake or parking brake. You can see the cable just goes in here and it threads in to the sleeve right here, and so we can just unscrew that. Now before you do that, if you want to, you can measure the depth just to make it easier to know where it needs to be, but it's very easy to reset this. Basically, when it's threaded in correctly, this will be at 7 to 8 clicks, full extension all the way back. So you just screw this back on until it gets to that when you do when you pull the lever. All right, next I'm going to take out the bolts for the seat belts just to get those out of the way. We have to remove those anyway to get the carpet out because it's a hole through it. And on this side, I think it's a 14, and on this side, it's a 17. All right, so now that all that stuff is out of the way, except for the steering wheel, which we can work around, we can just raise and lower the steering column as needed, or you can even potentially tie it up. There's not a really great place to hook it, though. You could hook it to the rafters of your garage. But now we've got a relatively flat space, and we can try to do a test fit of the carpeting. Oh yeah, it's just a test fit, but that's what I'm talking about. Looks pretty good. Basically, you want to fit it to the center and work your way out, and this seems to line up pretty well with the we're going to cut small holes in here for this to go through. I'm not going to cut like a giant U like this. Actually, I'm going to leave all this material because I want that, because I don't have a console going back in. Wow, looks pretty good. And of course the set came with a backing just like this and a parcel shelf carpet as well. All right, so time to pull this out, pull the old carpet out, and let's get to cleaning this old shell up. So the hard stuff is out of the way, but we still have a few things. There's a trim piece that goes right here. It has some small screws, 4 screws that hold that on, and we can take off these little tabs that hold the carpet tight. We're gonna have to reuse these on the new carpet. The new carpet doesn't come with this. So once we get it all measured out and it's ready to go in, then we can just staple these onto the new carpet and maybe do some trimming. We've also got this trim panel that goes right there, and it's got one of these guys, which you just pry up in the middle, and then you can take it out. And this pulls off fairly easily. It's got a little clip that should be right there, and if you look back in there, the clip will be there, and you want to slide this back on because it's a lot easier if the clip is just on here first when you're putting it back. So trim over here, that is a 10 millimeter. There's another one behind the other side of the roll bar, 10 millimeter, and then this will pop off. Normally There is a little peg that goes into here, but since it's impossible to put this back on with that peg in place, it's already taken off. It's sawed off on mine. And this should come off without having to remove the actual top of the seatbelt post. You've got these little clips behind here, and it should detach from itself and then be able to pull straight off. And another clip to watch out for is down in here somewhere. You may have a few of these guys, which you really do not want to break. They're kind of expensive to replace, and what you want to do is use a pry tool like this. This is a nylon pry tool. If you don't have this, then use a fork. Don't use a screwdriver to get under there because it will snap off one side of it if you're not prying equally on both sides. It may still snap anyway, but at least you've got a fair shot. All right, remove the dead pedal here. And if these are like some little cap nuts or acorn nuts, and if yours look like mine, very corroded, then I would take them off carefully by hand and not use a power tool, because you don't want to break off. These are just studs that are welded in, and you don't want those to shear off. Now you're going to want to work your way around, and up in here there may be a little, like right there, a little Velcro piece. And unless you're ripping out this firewall insulation, which I don't know if there's a reason to, it's really back there. You pretty much have to take this whole thing apart to get that out of there. Then you can keep this, and you may be able to get a matching set of Velcro on the new carpet, and that'll help also retain it in place so it doesn't move around on you. All right, then it's a fairly easy process to just kind of slide it back out underneath the steering column and stuff like that. You got to work it, but then you can get it out. I've seen worse. All right, now we got that automotive archaeology going on. Back here, a lot of the jute, I think, yeah, jute is did not come up, and doesn't look too bad. I don't think that's actually even surface rust. It's just the jute that's gotten all over the place. I think these are pretty solid, but hey, we're already making back our money on this project. Yeah, so that's pretty nasty. What else we got around here? A brand new Mega Squirt. No, that's my Mega Squirt that I installed and never really mounted. I just, instead of bolting it back sort of up, I just kept it lower. And yeah, never really bolted it in, but it seems to do fine there. Let's see, we've got a bunch of clippings for wiring when they hacked up the wiring harness for the stereo. But that's about it. Not too much. I'm disappointed. So the plan now is to inspect everything and to see if there's anything that is actually rust. This kind of looks vaguely rusty, but I think it's the brown of the juke, because when you brush it aside, it's fine. The paint is fine underneath. So we'll get this all cleaned up. We got to get all this stuff out of the way. We got to vacuum. We got to wipe everything down, and then we're going to start rebuilding it back up. Now, what does that entail? So the Miata does not have a lot of protection from either heat or sound, and so in more modern cars, you would see little sound deadening or resonance deadening patches placed here and there. We're going to basically replicate that. You may have seen some versions of this where they do the entire inside of the car with that sound deadening matte material. That can work better, but it's not strictly necessary. It's basically the law of diminishing returns. Yeah, there's technically a difference, but after you've gotten to about 25 to 50% coverage on a particular panel, no, it's not really going to be noticeable to your ear or anything like that. So I think that's what we're going to do. And if you can tell right now, pretty hollow. This is not, well, right over here is pretty bad. So basically we're going to go around and see where the resonance is the worst. And the tunnel is definitely one of those. The rear, that's not too bad actually. The rear bulkhead is not that bad, but the tunnel is pretty bad. So we're definitely going to cover all these areas first with the sound deadening, and then we're going to get into the heat barrier. This is what came out of it. Not good. Alright, so that side's looking a lot better. I think I'm going to hit it with, there's a couple little spots, especially right along there. I don't know what those are. I think they're spot welds for the frame rail underneath, and it looks like they're kind of rusting just a tad, some surface rust, so I think I'll spot touch those, and then I'm going to do the same bucket and sponge action as over here. Bucket number 2. That came out of the driver's side. Yeah. Alright, so what are we going to use? So, at the first level, at the sheet metal level, we're going to start off with a sound dampening mat. And so what this is it's a basically like a rubber-based, I guess butyl-based mat with an adhesive back, and this does not contain any petroleum products, so it has no smell, and it adheres to the sheet metal and reduces vibrations from resonance. And so once you do that, you're not going to have that kind of drumming hollow sound coming through your floor pan and your transmission tunnel. So there's a variety of these products on the market. I chose the one called Killmat. It's inexpensive. This is not sponsored, but it sort of met my needs. This is 80 mil thick. It's pretty easy to work with. It comes with this textured pattern on top, which when you roll it down, which you should with a roller like this, it presses these flat, which means that it's been pushed down hard enough. And so what that ensures is that not only it's going to work correctly and reduce the resonances, but also it ensures that the adhesion is good, that water will not go underneath it. So if this gets spilled with water, there'll be water around the outside edges, but then that's it. There are other products as well that are available, and the reason I chose this one was because of the lack of any kind of petroleum products. So one called Fat Mat is a little bit less expensive, but it contains that kind of stuff, and it can actually melt and sort of sag in hotter climates, of which I live. And there's another one that has a partial kind of tar-based layer called Noiko, which is also very popular. It's slightly more expensive than this one, and it's not completely made of that. It just has a small layer of that. But some people do complain about the smell of it. Some people say that there is no smell, but for some reason, some people do complain of a problem with it. And I just decided to not want to deal with it. Some people say that the adhesion of that product is better than the adhesion of the Killmat. So your mileage may vary, but I'm going to try this one out. The big dog on the street is called Dynamat, and it's very expensive. There's really, I don't know, in my mind, no reason for it. It is apparently works fine. It works great if you're willing to pay for it. It is a little lighter, which in some cases, some people may think is great, that it does the same thing but being lighter. And some people may not. They feel like the mass is sort of required to get the best effect. But in various tests, you know, the mass was not a factor, at least for the Dynamat. So that may be something to consider as well. When we're doing this, we're going to be adding some weight. This whole package, which is 36 square feet, weighs a fair amount. I'll flash up exactly how much it weighs right now. But I'm not really interested in adding too much weight to the car. I've been taking weight out of the car by all these different mods. And it is a sports car, and I'm trying to keep it minimal. So moving on to our next product. So this is for, not for sound, but for heat. And so this is a kind of foil. It looks like a foil, but it's very durable. It's lined with these little threads. basically throughout, and you cannot rip it very easily. And it's primarily used as a backing in construction. And so, again, with this product, there's nothing to smell, and it's very good for obviously reflective radiation heat, for getting that to not enter the cabin area. The other benefit of this product is that it's very thin and it's very light. Now, given the thinness, it will not really do that much for conductive heat. Now, this is not a good conductor, so it does a little bit, but it's mostly made for radiative heat. And so to deal with conductive heat, you need a little bit of an air barrier, and that's where this comes in. Now, this is a similar product to Reflectix. It's not Reflectix, but it's kind of similar. And basically, it has a little set of air bubbles in this sort of, it's almost like bubble wrap layer. So it's got two reflective layers and a bubble wrap layer in the middle. And people say, oh, you shouldn't use this under your carpet because it'll just pop. And yes, technically, it does kind of pop. However, unless you're walking around your floor pan in high heels all the time, if I press with my full weight onto this material, and jump up and down, just the fact that my weight is spread across my foot, there's no popping. It's not popping. It's not having any problem with dealing with this air gap in the middle with that bubble wrap layer. And so, especially when the carpet is on top of it, this is going to be just fine. And so that's going to really cut down on the cabin heat. Now, the new carpet came with some of this padding on the back, and I'm not exactly sure of the material. It's definitely open, and so it will absorb water and probably retain water, just like the original jute material. And as opposed to this, the carpet itself is somewhat waterproof, but it will definitely leak through eventually. You can keep this material on here for that extra padding, you know, if you want that kind of padded feel, you know, inside that your feet are resting against. But you can also remove it. It's just held on here with basically some contact adhesive. Once your interior is basically clean, you've got most of the debris wiped out, any kind of glue kind of rubbed off, things like that. You're going to want to wipe it down with some mineral spirits. And so I've got here, it's labeled paint thinner, but it's 100% mineral spirits. This is probably the cheapest type of degreaser that you can get. It works fine. It's not going to damage the paint of the floor pan or anything like that. And so with a clean rag, you're going to put some on here. And I do recommend using a respirator while you do this, or at least have a fan on or something. I really recommend the respirator. But you're going to wipe things down, and that's going to allow proper adhesion for the sticky material on the back. Alright, so this stuff is fairly easy to work with. It is a little bit stiff, but also easily foldable, and folding does not hurt it. And so what I've done is, well, what I'm going to do is put it as additional protection up here against this material. This is basically just a rubber mat with some of that padding behind it. And that's all you get from the factory for a heat shield across the firewall. And so, especially on this side where the exhaust is, a bunch of heat radiates through this. So this is some easy material because it's so thin to work up in there. And what I've done is taken off the little, these are just retainers that help keep that from sagging or doing anything, moving around, onto those studs. And there's a couple more right above here at the back of the pedal. So I'm just going to work that in there. And I haven't really cut it very precisely. What I'll do is if I need to, I'll just cut it with a little razor or something like that once I get it into place and sort of lock down where I want it. And then I'll do the same back here. This one you can work off with a small flathead screwdriver. If you're careful, just kind of pry upwards on those little tabs and it'll come off of the stud that's in the back there. And you can work your material behind it and kind of press to make a hole through the material. All right, there you have it. A small incision right underneath the steering column, and it tucks up right around there. Didn't even have to apply any glue or anything like that. Just kind of tucks into place, and yeah, it's not going anywhere. It's gonna stay put. All right, so that just tucks back there. A little cutout for where the pipes go for the heater core, and this goes right back on top, and we can even get some space a little bit behind the AC evaporator core. All right, phase 2 is the kill mat. So this can be laid out around in a area, you know, giving you kind of an idea. The backing is still on there, so it's not stuck down, of course. And just to plan out like where things need to go and how you may cut it up. Obviously things like this, we're gonna cut up into some smaller pieces and kind of work them into these areas, but I'm being pretty generous here since there's a lot of this material. I know I said before 25 to 50% coverage, but it's easy enough to do 50 to 75% coverage, and might as well. Okay, so laying this in is pretty simple. You're going to want to have gloves because the edges can be a tad sharp, and just in case, you know, so you're not working with it. So basically what you're going to do is for easy areas like this, which are easy to reach, you can remove the backing and just place the top down first and just sort of lay it down. And from the middle, working outwards, press it into any grooves or indentations that may exist in the pan with your hands. Okay, we're not going to stop there, but we're just going to work it with our hands to begin with. And that's fairly easy to get down. You can see it conforming nicely. And then we're going to come at it with the roller. All right, so we're going to come in here and going to want to go over it into every crevice, because the better it adheres everywhere, the more resonance damping you will get. So we go over this until, if you notice, the indentations in the film begin to flatten out. So that shows when we're done and we've got a good enough seal. And we just keep at it until we get the plate down, and then basically you get none of that drumming sound. So sounds versus. There we go. Another thing to note is that anywhere you have some of these little grommets, these are the plugs for water to actually drain out if your car gets flooded. They have these in both sides of the floor well, in the 2 on this side and 2 on this side. You do not want to cover those up, so stay away from that kind of square area right there. But other than that, you can basically put it kind of wherever you think makes sense. As you go along, keep knocking, you know, making noise on the thing, and you'll see where it needs to be. The next part is to get our this is basically Reflectix, but our heat barrier in. So for the middle, it's going to need a little bit of help staying down because it doesn't like to conform. It looks like it's conforming on camera, but it's not. It's got you know, a bunch of air under there. So we don't want that. We want it to conform pretty well, and we want it to not move when we're trying to maneuver the carpet into place, which is going to be, you know, a little awkward. So we're going to use a little of this carpet tape. It's fairly high temperature rated carpet tape, but I think for indoor and outdoor use. All right, so we get our tape on there like this, and we peel back backing tape after having pressed on there pretty good, and we'll be ready to stick it down. Alright, looking nice. Cut out a little square there for the dead pedal and for the seat mounts, and basically we're good. I guess I may put one against the bulkhead, maybe not. The carpeting has something on the back for that, I believe, so we'll see. But this looks pretty much ready to go, and then this center portion is kind of taped up so that things won't fold back when I'm rearranging stuff with the carpet, so it's time to get the carpet in.